Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and today we're talking about buying clothes.
That's right. We're going to go and get some clothes, but on this occasion, we are going to get a suit, and we're going to have it made especially for us. So before we get started, why don't we take a look at one key word that we have in Vocabulary Preview.
Vocabulary Preview.
Okay, this word makes me think of things that are very rich and soft.
It's a fabric, right?
That's right. It's a kind of textile. It's called cashmere.
Cashmere.
So maybe you've heard of cashmere wool. It's a special kind of wool that comes from animals.
So this is a textile or a fabric that is commonly used to make pants, nice pants or suits for men.
Or scarves or sweaters. You've ever had a cashmere sweater, you know it's very luxurious, very soft.
So it can be a little bit expensive depending on the quality, and that's what we're going to be looking at now. We're going to be making a suit out of cashmere. So why don't we listen to our dialogue for the first time?
Welcome to Bill's Fabric World. What can I do for you today?
I was wondering if you guys also tailor clothes.
Sure we do. We have the best tailors in the country. What is it that you need exactly?
Well, I'm looking to get a custom-made suit.
Excellent. We have the finest cashmeres at affordable prices. How about we get you measured? Let's start off by measuring the width of your shoulders. Now, let's measure the length of your arms and this bit around your neck here.
Can you make sure you leave a little extra space in the collar? My neck gets easily irritated.
No problem. Now for your pants, let me just measure your waist and the inseam.
You might also want to leave a little extra room in the waist area. I tend to gain a few pounds over the holidays.
Okay. Now you can pick your fabric and pattern design. Please follow me.
So this reminds me of something that people used to do a lot more often. So you go to the tailor and you'd have some clothes made. Most people don't do this anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's actually really interesting. Maybe because it's more expensive nowadays, or tailors are harder to find.
That's right. So let's learn about the words first and what they mean, and then maybe we can talk about this at the end of today's show.
Language Takeaway.
All right, so today on Language Takeaway, we have a word that is a noun and a verb. So as you mentioned, the person that makes suits is a tailor.
That's right. You can say, my uncle is a tailor. He makes clothes for famous people. But this word is also a verb. That means it's an action word. We can say, my uncle, the tailor, he tailors clothes.
Okay, so to tailor clothes. And what does it mean when you say to tailor?
Well, it can have two meanings. The first is what we learn about in today's dialogue. It means to make clothes.
Okay.
So to make a shirt or to make a pair of pants. But these days we often say to tailor, which means to fix something. So, for example, Marco, if you buy a pair of pants and they're too long,
Right.
you can have them tailored.
You have them tailored. And that means that I am going to have them fixed so they fit me properly.
Exactly. This is a lot more common right now.
Okay, so we're going to be tailoring clothes. Now, if any of you have ever been to the tailor, what they do is they measure you. And what do they measure? Well, in this case, they get the width of your shoulders.
Well, what's really great about these upcoming words is that they're useful in math as well, math and just basic measurements. So width is how big something is across.
Across, so how wide something is.
Exactly, wide, width.
Okay, so that's the width. Now, your shoulders, they are wide. And, well, your legs, on the other hand, your legs and arms, you don't measure the width. Usually you measure the length.
How long they are.
Okay, so width and length. Now, just to throw it in there, this wasn't in the dialogue, but what would be the other measure word?
So the third word would be height. So you think of a rectangle, you have the width, how wide something is, the length, how long it is, and the height, how tall it is.
How tall it is, right. So width, length, and height. All right. Now that we've measured our arms and legs, now we want to measure our waist.
Okay, this is the important one. This is also the sensitive one. If you find out you've gained some weight, we measure the waist. Okay, that's how big you are around your stomach. And so usually we measure this in a circle.
Okay.
Okay, so you've heard of a 26-inch waist or a 32-inch waist. This is the size of your stomach.
Okay. So it's just above your hips, right? As you say, it's your stomach. And, well, we measure the waist, and now in men especially, they measure the inseam. Now, this is very particular for tailors and having suits made. What is the inseam of your pants?
Well, think of the word inside. This is the inside of your pants. So from your foot to the middle of your pants where your zipper starts.
Okay.
So that's not the outside length, it's the inside length, okay?
Now, for example, skirts, they don't have inseams, right?
No, because there's no inside, there's no middle, right? So it's just like a circle.
Okay.
But in pants or shorts, you have an inseam. That's where it's connected in the middle.
All right. So also in shorts, very interesting. So you can measure the inseam of pants or shorts. All right, so very interesting and particular words for tailors. Why don't we listen to our dialogue again, and we'll be back shortly.
Welcome to Bill's Fabric World. What can I do for you today?
I was wondering if you guys also tailor clothes.
Sure we do. We have the best tailors in the country. What is it that you need exactly?
Well, I'm looking to get a custom-made suit.
Excellent. We have the finest cashmeres at affordable prices. How about we get you measured? Let's start off by measuring the width of your shoulders. Now, let's measure the length of your arms and this bit around your neck here.
Can you make sure you leave a little extra space in the collar? My neck gets easily irritated.
No problem. Now for your pants, let me just measure your waist and the inseam.
You might also want to leave a little extra room in the waist area. I tend to gain a few pounds over the holidays.
Okay. Now you can pick your fabric and pattern design. Please follow me.
All right, we're back. So now we have 3 key phrases that we found in this dialogue. So let's take a look at them now in Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
This first phrase is the topic of today's lesson. Well, we talked a little bit about measurements for a suit, but in particular, we're getting a custom-made suit.
Okay, so this word custom-made.
Well, custom is important. It means special or unique. There's no other like it. So we could talk about custom cars. That means a car that has been fixed especially for you.
Okay, so a custom-made suit would be a suit that was made specifically for your height, for how big your waist is, etc., specifically for you.
Right, so a suit that I buy at the department store is just a normal suit, but a suit that I have made for me is a custom-made suit.
Okay, and as you said, you can use it for cars, a custom-made car, or maybe, for example, a custom-made
kitchen. That means that you get to pick every single part of the kitchen that you want.
Many people do that, right? They have custom-built or custom-made homes.
Yeah, that's always something I've wanted to do, but I hear that it's much more expensive than getting a normal homemade.
All right, so that's the first key phrase. Now, moving on, when we talk about measuring, we say, I measured the length of this street.
Right, or let's measure you so we can see how big you are.
But if you noticed in the dialogue, we use the passive voice. He says, let's get you measured.
Okay, I got measured, or it got measured. To get measured, as you say, is the passive voice. Now, what's the difference between passive and active?
All right, so basically what happens here is we are concentrating on the person and the action falling upon you, for example. So, I got measured. What happened to me? I got measured.
Who did it? Who measured you? We don't know.
We don't know. We don't care, right?
All right, the important part is that you were measured. You got measured. But we could have a different phrase. We say, for example, I will measure this table, or he measures the height of the door. And we know he measures.
Right.
I will measure. We know who the actor is. That means it's active voice because the focus is on who's doing this action. But in passive voice, the important thing is who is receiving the action.
Right. Now, it's a little bit complicated because, as you can see, measured is in the past, but we're not really talking about the past, so it may get a little bit complicated. We can take a more in-depth look at that in the community section. You can ask a couple questions. We'll place a couple of examples, but it's kind of hard to get into the grammar over an audio podcast, right?
That's true. So that's why we have the practice space on the website.
All right. Now, moving on, we have our last phrase. And when he was talking about the waist and how he should leave a little bit of extra room, it's because he tends to gain a few pounds.
Okay, so to gain a few pounds is like gaining a kilo. It means to gain weight over the holidays. And And in this case, to tend to, I tend to, means I normally or I usually. So, for example, Marco, what do you tend to eat for breakfast?
I tend to eat scrambled eggs and a glass of yogurt.
That's healthy.
I
Do you
am.
tend to run late in the morning?
Yes.
True.
Right? So tend to, it's a tendency is what usually happens.
It's normal.
It's normal. All right. So very interesting phrases, very interesting words. Why don't we listen to our dialogue for the last time?
Welcome to Bill's Fabric World. What can I do for you today?
I was wondering if you guys also tailor clothes.
Sure we do. We have the best tailors in the country. What is it that you need exactly?
Well, I'm looking to get a custom-made suit.
Excellent. We have the finest cashmeres at affordable prices. How about we get you measured? Let's start off by measuring the width of your shoulders. Now, let's measure the length of your arms and this bit around your neck here.
Can you make sure you leave a little extra space in the collar? My neck gets easily irritated.
No problem. Now for your pants, let me just measure your waist and the inseam.
You might also want to leave a little extra room in the waist area. I tend to gain a few pounds over the holidays.
Okay. Now you can pick your fabric and pattern design. Please follow me.
All right. So we talked earlier about how most people buy their clothes at a department store or a clothing store. Have you seen much of this? You know, maybe back in Ecuador, it's more common than in America.
Yeah, usually people just go to a department store and get suits, for example, but it's actually very common as well because it's kind of they're artisans to be like a shoemaker or to be a tailor. So actually people like it more and go to tailors because they kind of become renowned. Like, oh, he used to make suits for the president. So, you know, people really, really like to get suits made there. And obviously they fit much better. You feel more comfortable.
And you look better.
Yeah.
As I've said before, you know, I see people who buy all these suits. My brother, for example, they never quite fit right.
Yeah.
You can tell it's a little too big in the shoulders. My brother's tall, so his pants are always a little bit too short. But when you come to a place like China and most people can get these suits made for them, they just look fabulous.
It looks very, very nice. Yeah, so maybe you guys can tell us if you've ever had anything tailor-made. Not only guys' suits, but girls also get tailor-made dresses, tailor-made blouses.
I always get coats made, actually, because
Coats.
my shoulders are broad, and so it's hard for me to find coats that fit right. But if I get one custom made, it looks really good.
Right. So come to our website, englishpod.com, leave your questions and comments there, and we'll see you guys later.
Until next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
Made especially for the needs of one person. Custom made. To ascertain the dimensions, quantity. Measure. Be sure. Make sure. Be more likely. Tend. An artistic or decorative design that repeats. Pattern design. Let's try that faster. An artistic or decorative design that repeats. Pattern design. Be sure. Make sure. Be more likely. Tend. Made especially for the needs of one person. Custom made. To ascertain the dimensions, quantity. Measure. Now say the word and hear it in a sentence. Custom made. Brad got a custom-made motorcycle. It looks amazing. Custom-made. I want to get a custom-made sports car. Custom-made. Her dress was custom-made in Italy. Measure. I need to measure the length of this street. Measure. Help me measure the width of this box. Measure. Many people tried to measure the diameter of the earth. Make sure. Make sure you make some extra food just in case. Make sure. Please make sure you leave the door unlocked. Make sure. Can you make sure those reports are done by the end of this week? Tend. Don't buy cheap things. They tend to break easily. Tend. I always tend to forget my keys in my car. Tend. People tend to forget what happened in the past. Pattern design. This flower pattern for my dress looks really nice. Pattern design. I bought wallpaper that has a black and red circle pattern. Pattern design. I want a simple and elegant dress pattern.
Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English Pod. My name is Marco.
And my name is Catherine, and today we're talking about something very serious.
Very serious. Today we're talking about capital punishment.
So if you've never heard that phrase before, you might have heard another name for this topic. It's called the death penalty.
Right. So if you commit a crime, and basically the judge says that you will have to be put to death for that crime.
All right, so many countries no longer have this law. The United States, you can see it in some places, some states, but not in others. So what we're talking about today is the debate between to have the death penalty and to not have it.
All right, so we're going to actually have a little debate in the end of if we agree that we should have the death penalty or not. But before that, why don't we listen to this dialogue for the first time?
That's all for today's class. We will continue our lecture on crime and punishment tomorrow.
Do you think we should be tougher on crime?
Well, it depends on what you mean.
For example, we could bring back the death penalty for murder, give longer prison sentences for lesser offenses, and lock up juvenile offenders.
Those sound like really draconian measures. Firstly, what do you do about miscarriages of justice if you've already put innocent people to death?
You'd only use capital punishment if you were absolutely sure that you convicted the right person.
But there have been many cases of wrongful conviction where people have been imprisoned for many years. The authorities were sure at the time, but later it was shown that the evidence was unreliable. In some cases, it had been fabricated by the police.
Well, no system of justice can be perfect, but surely there's a good case for longer prison sentences to deter serious crime.
I doubt whether they could act as an effective deterrent while the detection rate is so low. The best way to prevent crime is to convince people who commit it that they're going to be caught. It doesn't make sense to divert all your resources into the prison system.
But if you detect more crimes, you'll still need prisons. In my reckoning, if we could lock up more juvenile criminals, they'd learn that they can't get away with it. Soft sentences will merely encourage them to do it again.
Yes, but remember that prisons are often schools for criminals. To remove crime from society, you really have to tackle its causes.
Well, if I were president, I would impose tougher laws and punishment. I would have a peaceful society based on fear of punishment, not consciousness of doing the right thing.
You sound like a dictator.
Well, if it works, why not? All right, so Marco, there's a lot of really great legal terms here, legal and crime terms. And so let's look at a few of these in today's language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
All right, so let's take a look at the first one. They mentioned juvenile offenders.
All right, so let's look at these two words because, offender can be pretty general. It's someone who commits a crime. Mm-hmm. So an offender. But we're talking about a special kind of offender. Here we're talking about juvenile offenders.
Mm-hmm. So they're young offenders.
Right, and in America, legally, you're a juvenile offender if you're under the age of 18.
Okay, so if you commit a crime while you are a juvenile, you get judged differently, right? You don't get the same treatment as an adult.
Right. Usually the punishments are not as harsh because people like to think that younger people, younger children or teenagers, they don't really understand the law. They don't really understand crime or good and bad. So
all right,
we should be easier on them.
Mm-hmm. All right, very good. So we have juvenile offenders and we also have wrongful conviction.
All right, this is an uh-oh moment for a judge because a wrongful conviction, well, conviction, first of all, is a decision. So this is a court's decision on whether or not a person is guilty.
So you convicted the person.
Right. Marco was convicted guilty of stealing my computer.
I was too. That happened.
Okay. Right. But it's a wrongful conviction if Marco didn't really steal a computer, but we decided that he did.
Okay. So it was a wrong decision.
Right. It was a bad decision in the sense that it's actually not what happened in reality.
Mm-hmm. A wrongful conviction. Very good. And actually related to a wrongful conviction, many times it happens because evidence is fabricated by the police.
All right. So this is a big no-no. This is something that really shouldn't happen, and it's against the law in many countries. So fabrication, or to fabricate, is to fake, to make something up.
Mm-hmm.
And so evidence that's fabricated is evidence that the police or other people create to try and make someone look guilty, but it's not actually evidence. It's not really...
it's not true.
It's not true.
Right.
Yeah.
And now moving on, they were talking about a deterrent for crime.
Okay, so to deter is a verb. To deter means to try and get someone to not do something. All right. So I'm going to try and deter my staff from taking early lunch breaks. Okay. So I'm going to punish someone as a deterrent.
As a deterrent. Okay, so you have the verb deter and you have the noun a deterrent.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so oftentimes very strict laws are meant to be deterrents. They're meant to keep people from doing bad things, from breaking the law.
All right, so for example, capital punishment is one of those deterrents. If you kill somebody, then if you get caught, you are also going to be killed.
So that means I'm never going to kill anyone because I don't want the law to decide that I'm going to get killed.
Exactly. And our last word for today, they were talking about imposing tougher laws. I would impose tougher laws.
Okay, so to impose is a verb that means to put in place or to set up or enact. And so,
but by force, right? You don't really agree to do it.
Like the dictator imposes his will. Mm-hmm. All right, so he makes everyone do what he wants. But we can impose measures that do something. It's kind of like forcibly making people follow some kind of rule or follow a person.
Now, sometimes you would see that you have a company or you have people at your house and they're like, well, stay over for dinner. And they're like, Oh, I wouldn't want to impose.
All right, so I wouldn't want to bother you, or I wouldn't want to create more work for you because, when you're making food, you have all these people, they don't want to impose on you.
All right, so that's another way of using this, impose on somebody. All right, so after all of these words that we've taken a look at, why don't we start now with Fluency Builder?
Fluency Builder.
Okay, so as you know, Fluency Builder is a place where you get to talk about some phrases and words that allow you to be more fluent in English. So these are sometimes idioms or sometimes phrases, words that go together commonly. And the first one is no exception. It's a miscarriage. So miscarriage of justice.
All right, a miscarriage of justice. Now we have different words here. The first one, miscarriage, it's usually related to a medical term.
Right, it's a pregnancy. Well, it's a pregnancy that has a sad result. It's a pregnancy where the woman's baby dies or the woman loses the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And a miscarriage of justice is a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to say that justice was not carried out. It means that, for example, with those wrongful convictions, the law failed
To accomplish its objective.
Yeah, to accomplish its objective and to be fair.
Okay, so a miscarriage of justice. Interesting. And moving on to our next phrase, they were talking and discussing this whole death penalty situation, and she mentioned, in my reckoning.
All right, so this is a great way to share your opinion or your idea with someone. You're saying pretty much, in my opinion, according to me, or, the way I'm thinking is this.
So I can also say, I reckon, right?
Exactly. I reckon it's going to rain later. I think it's going to rain. So in my reckoning, in my opinion.
All right. I reckon. And to finish off Fluency Builder, they said that the person or the criminal couldn't get away with it.
All right. So this is another one of those phrases that each word maybe means something different. You can get somewhere. But put together, to get away with something means to do something bad or illegal or that's not okay without getting caught.
Or being punished.
So
you can say, get away with murder.
He got away with murder. He did something that was really, really bad, but no one caught him.
And also it means the criminal got away, so they couldn't catch him.
Right, or I could always say to my brother, he would always lie to my parents and get away with it. So that he never got caught. He never got punished.
Okay, so he got away with his lie or got his way.
Right.
All right, so I think this is an interesting phrase. Why don't we listen to a couple of more examples?
Example 1.
Do you think we could get away with using the cheaper product?
Example 2.
Thieves got away with 2 Picassos, which were never found.
Example 3.
He almost got away with murder. Unfortunately for him, the police discovered his secret.
So we've taken a look at a lot of great phrases. Why don't we listen to our dialogue for the last time, and then we'll come back.
That's all for today's class. We will continue our lecture on crime and punishment tomorrow.
Do you think we should be tougher on crime?
Well, it depends on what you mean.
For example, we could bring back the death penalty for murder, give longer prison sentences for lesser offenses, and lock up juvenile offenders.
Those sound like really draconian measures. Firstly, what do you do about miscarriages of justice if you've already put innocent people to death?
You'd only use capital punishment if you were absolutely sure that you convicted the right person.
But there have been many cases of wrongful conviction where people have been imprisoned for many years. The authorities were sure at the time, but later it was shown that the evidence was unreliable. In some cases, it had been fabricated by the police.
Well, no system of justice can be perfect, but surely there's a good case for longer prison sentences to deter serious crime.
I doubt whether they could act as an effective deterrent while the detection rate is so low. The best way to prevent crime is to convince people who commit it that they're going to be caught. It doesn't make sense to divert all your resources into the prison system.
But if you detect more crimes, you'll still need prisons. In my reckoning, if we could lock up more juvenile criminals, they'd learn that they can't get away with it. Soft sentences will merely encourage them to do it again.
Yes, but remember that prisons are often schools for criminals. To remove crime from society, you really have to tackle its causes.
Well, if I were president, I would impose tougher laws and punishment. I would have a peaceful society based on fear of punishment, not consciousness of doing the right thing.
You sound like a dictator.
Well, if it works, why not?
All right, so now the big question, Catherine. Do you agree with the death penalty?
Oh, this is a big one, and I don't think we have enough time to go into it in much detail here, but I definitely think that is extreme, right? And so we have this phrase, draconian measures.
Right,
and I
they
think,
mentioned that in the dialogue.
yeah, so draconian, something that's draconian is excessive or severe, you know? And I think that there are a lot of reasons not to have the death penalty, because the death penalty, well, you're pretty much saying, we as a society think that murder is wrong, but we're going to show you that you've done a wrong thing, like a bad thing that's against the law, by killing you. All right, and so I have to disagree with that on a philosophical level.
But what about practical?
Practically speaking, I think that there are a lot of problems with the prison system and the legal system in the United States, for example, because prisons are really crowded. 1% of the American population is in prison. And so I think that so long as the prison system still has problems, there's a really good argument for having the death penalty. But still, I think that it's excessive and it's unnecessary and that there are other ways to treat and punish prisoners.
It is an interesting topic because you have many different angles that are in favor or against the death penalty. For example, you have religious views where you say that you should not take a life of another person no matter what. Or you have other views that say that the death penalty is simply wrong and that you can't right a wrong with another wrong.
Right, exactly.
So it kind of doesn't make sense. But at the same time, you do, like you say, the prisons are full of people and it costs around, I think it's $12,000 a year per person to keep them in prison. So what do you do with all of these people that have life sentences that are going to spend the rest of their lives in jail? So it is interesting. And many countries are very, very strict with their legal system in comparison with the United States, right?
Definitely, but there is a statistic that's pretty stunning that I think among the top 20 developed nations in the world, I think only the United States is the one with the death penalty.
Exactly. And actually the ratio of people compared to the population that are in jail is much higher in the United States than in other countries.
That's true.
So it is a very questionable topic, but we want to know what you think. Do you think that the death penalty is a justifiable way to do justice? Or do you think maybe it's just wrong and we shouldn't have it anymore?
Yeah, we're hoping that that this will get the conversation going on our website. If you have any opinions, please let us know about them. Englishpod.com is the website. And of course, you can always email us or send us a PM if you're a little bit shy.
All right. So we'll see you guys there.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word. The punishment of death.
Death penalty.
The act of changing the direction or use of something.
Diversion.
The amount of time to keep criminals in jail.
Prison sentence.
Expecting or requiring people to obey rules or laws.
Authoritarian.
Underage criminals.
Juvenile offender.
An issue that causes disagreement between people and causes them to separate into different groups.
Divisive topic.
Very strict and severe.
Draconian.
A person who continues to commit crimes even after being caught and punished.
Recidivist.
An unjust legal decision.
Miscarriage of justice.
To teach a criminal in prison to live a normal and productive life.
Rehabilitate.
Punishment of death.
Capital punishment.
To make something up to trick people.
Fabricate.
Something that prevents people from doing something.
Deterrent.
To move resources from one thing to another.
Divert.
Someone who rules with absolute power.
Dictator.
Let's try that faster. To make something up to trick people.
Fabricate.
Very strict and severe.
Draconian.
An unjust legal decision.
Miscarriage of justice.
Underage criminals.
Juvenile offender.
The punishment of death.
Death penalty.
The amount of time to keep criminals in jail.
Prison sentence.
Someone who rules with absolute power.
Dictator.
An issue that causes disagreement between people and causes them to separate into different groups.
Divisive topic.
Expecting or requiring people to obey rules or laws.
Authoritarian.
Punishment of death.
Capital punishment.
The act of changing the direction or use of something.
Diversion.
To teach a criminal in prison to live a normal and productive life.
Rehabilitate.
Something that prevents people from doing something.
Deterrent.
To move resources from one thing to another.
Divert.
A person who continues to commit crimes even after being caught and punished.
Recidivist.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Death penalty. Many religious groups object to the death penalty. Death penalty. The death penalty is one of the most divisive topics in America. Death penalty. Statistics about the effectiveness of the death penalty in crime deterrence are often conflicting. Draconian. Some small American towns are enacting draconian laws against dancing. Draconian. The word draconian comes from an ancient Greek lawyer under whom small offenses had heavy punishments. Draconian. In places with draconian laws, there may be law and order, but there is no personal freedom. Fabricate. The boy fabricated the entire story. There was no wolf at all. Fabricate. The factory can fabricate almost any textile. Fabricate. New studies have found that even DNA evidence can be easily fabricated. Deterrent. Bike locks are good theft deterrents. Deterrent. Many studies have proven that long jail sentences are not an effective crime deterrent. Deterrent. When traveling in these mountains, we recommend carrying a long stick to deter mountain lion attacks. Divert. The government will divert future revenue into paying off the national debt. Divert. Beaver dams can divert an entire river. Divert. One thief diverted the victim's attention while the other thief stole his wallet.